Go.
Hello everyone. I am going to be doing a very special investigative report on Friday, so please tune in at 2 p.m. Chasing Justice will be at the house of Mrs. Dorothy Chappelle, who is the grandmother of 15-year-old Brandon McCloud, who was killed in his bedroom in 2005. I want to read something very brief before we do this investigation so that people who aren't familiar with what happened to Brandon and the travesty, the injustice behind what happened to him, and why we really need to be addressing police misconduct and holding our elected officials more responsible in this country. This nation needs to understand that there is something that is happening that must cease, and that is the death of unarmed people in this country by police officers. So I'm going to read something to you that was written by Terry Gilbert. He was the attorney who represented Brandon's family after he was killed, and this was written in Cleveland Scene. So I want to read part of this to you so that you can get an understanding of what happened on that morning. The article is Cleveland Scene. You can Google it. It's Anatomy of an Injustice by Terry Gilbert. It's a lawyer's perspective on the Brandon McCloud shooting. I'm only going to read part of it because we'll be talking about this more extensively on Friday at 2 p.m. So make sure that you tune in because we'll be there. Detective Philip Habib waited outside the house for the right moment to make the early morning entry, anxious to confront the 15-year-old boy he suspected of robbing a pizza delivery man hours earlier. He and his partner, John Kranick, were understandably upset, having arrested the same kid for a similar robbery 6 months earlier. They thought he'd learned his lesson during their last interrogation session, but apparently sterner and more aggressive measures were required. Armed with a search warrant, they waited for signs of movement in the house. With time to burn, Habib called a radio dispatcher on his cell phone and chatted with her about the plan. The flirtatious dispatcher mused that if the detective was out of his breath chasing the kid, "You know he's running," when the dispatcher suggested that he should just shoot to kill, and Habib replied, "Absolutely." A few minutes later, Brandon McCloud lay dead in a pool of blood, shot 10 times in his own bedroom. This was in 2005. In November, after 4 years of litigation, the Sixth Circuit Federal Appeals Court in Cincinnati threw out the wrongful death civil rights lawsuit we brought on behalf of his family, reversing a trial judge's early decision that a jury could find fault in the officer's actions and award compensation. The appeals court ruled that the shooters were entitled to immunity from the suit. In other words, we were denied our right to present the evidence to a jury of citizens to let them decide whether the detective's actions were justified. I'm going to stop there. This has been something that was so devastating to me since it happened, that Brandon, who was laying asleep in his bed in the very early hours, was confronted by 2 armed police officers who killed him, shot him 10 times. One of the bullets entered into the top of Brandon's head. So that means that Brandon was in a different position when they shot him. It meant that he was down like this when he was shot in the top of his head. So Friday is very important. I did visit Mrs. Chappelle and I asked her for permission to enter into Brandon's bedroom. Brandon's room has been closed since 2005. No one has entered it since he was killed. Nothing has been moved. Nothing has changed. We are going to go into Brandon's room and we're going to show you the size of Brandon's room. And we are going to take the statements of the police officers and compare them to Brandon's room. We're going to be Brandon's voice. We're going to tell the story that Brandon can't tell. We're going to address the issue of police misconduct in this city, in this state, in this country. Why is this important now? Because last week, Cleveland.com reported that Officer Kranick, who was the partner of Detective Habib that fatal morning, was found to have some very racist remarks in his cell phone. Internal Affairs was doing an investigation on another case, and for some reason they asked for his cell phone, and they found racist remarks within his cell phone. This is an officer who was cleared by judges, who was cleared by the city and arbitrators to come back to the Cleveland Police Department to serve the citizens of this city. A racist remark, even if it was one, is a very telling thing about a person who is serving the public. We have to ask ourselves, who are these people that we call public servants? Are they really serving the public, even though they're being paid by the public? Are our public officials that we elect, that we vote into office, are they making sure that there's legislation that's in place to protect us from those police officers who think very differently about other human beings because of their economics or because of the color of their skin? We've got to really get into this and start talking about what's happening in our country, in our world, and we've got to make real changes. Brandon McCloud was 15 years old. Yes, he had been accused of robbing a pizza delivery person 6 months earlier, but this particular morning, Brandon was laying in his own bed and he was asleep when these two police officers entered in without the permission of his grandmother or his uncle. They were there. They didn't ask him to call Brandon downstairs so they could talk to him or see him. They entered into that house without any type of warning to the family that they were going up there to even arrest him. They didn't ask. His grandmother was outside getting in her car about to go to work, and his uncle was downstairs and watched the police officers walk up the stairs, and within seconds of them going up the stairs, they shot him 10 times in his own bed. So I'm going to ask you something. The police officer stated that Brandon jumped out of the closet with a knife. How did Brandon know they were coming up those stairs? How did Brandon know that it was police officers in his bedroom? And I'm going to show you the size of Brandon's alleged closet that he jumped out of with a knife. I think we've got some questions we need to ask, not only of the Cleveland Police Department and these officers, but the judges who sat on those seats and the elected officials who allowed these police officers to walk in that bedroom and gun that boy down. We still want answers. Brandon is still with us. At least he's still with me. He hasn't gone anywhere. And I want to make sure that Brandon's voice is heard and that his story is told. Mrs. Chappelle has given me permission to go into the room that's been locked since 2005 when Brandon was killed. Nothing's been moved. Everything is in the same place. And we're going to go there Friday at 2 o'clock, and we're going to go in there and we're going to show you what they did to Brandon. Brandon was 15. Call him a thug if you want to. Call him a thief, call him a liar. But what we definitely can call him is dead. And why? Why would anyone be in their bed and have an expectation, even if it's a criminal? Whatever he did he deserve a death sentence? Did the police officers have the authority to give a death sentence? I would think judges would be a little bit more upset when police officers kill unarmed American citizens, because it's the judge who makes the decisions and determinations on who receives a death sentence after a jury determines they're guilty of a crime. It seems to me that judges are now starting to lose your legal power. Let's question that. Is it something that police officers should have the ability to do? Is to issue a death sentence and on a 15-year-old boy? We fast forward 15 years later, 12 years later, and nothing's changed. We've lost Timothy and Melissa. We've lost Tamir Rice to police officers who were overzealous, possibly, we don't know. On drugs, we don't know that either. Drinking, we don't know that either. Unstable, well, we know that in the case of Timothy Loman. But what we don't know is Why was Brandon killed that morning in his room? His room. That's like you being in your bedroom and sleeping and someone entering in. You don't know who they are, you haven't given them permission, you have no expectation. Even if you jumped out of your bed, would it be an abnormal response? If you jumped up, even if you had a knife in the room, would it be abnormal if someone entered your bedroom at an early hour while you're sleeping and not knowing who they were or what they wanted? He was 15. 15. He's no longer with us. It hurts me. But tomorrow, I'll be here, God willing. Friday, we're going to go into Brandon's room and we're going to see what happened in that room, which is something that no judge, no lawyer, no media person has even attempted to do. To see, did Brandon get justice? Because now I am chasing justice. I'll see you on Friday. Thank you.